In this section, we are going to see how to troubleshoot your end user connectivity. Like let's take an example. I have a scenario where I have some group of set of devices connected in my LAN, and maybe some of the communication between these LAN devices is not happening. Like an example, 192.168.1.1 is trying to access some server. Assume that there is a server on 192.168.1.4, and there's no communication happening between these two devices. That is what I realize. 1.1 is not able to communicate with 1.4, or maybe the problem might be 1.1 user is not able to access the gateway over on the router 1. So the problem can be anywhere. Like if these two devices are not able to communicate, the first thing we need to keep in mind, we need to check the connectivity part. So connectivity is a physical connectivity, the first thing we need to figure out when we are doing some troubleshooting between any two devices in the LAN. So first I'm going to start with, so when you're doing this, the first thing we need to figure out, again, the problem might be on the device, on the local device connecting to the LAN. You can see the problem there may be a physical connectivity issue between your switch to PC, the first PC here, or the problem might be on a centralized device, or the problem may be on the remote device connection. So now we need to figure out first thing where the problem is. Suppose if only that particular user is facing this problem, in that case we can really figure out that, or maybe the problem is on that device, if only that particular user is having the problem. If all the users are also facing the same problem, means they are not able to communicate with each other. In that case, we can assume that there is a problem with my centralized device, the switch connecting between all these devices, or no one is able to access that particular 1.4 server, means we need to understand that the problem might be on the remote device end. So based on this, the first thing we need to figure out where the problem might be whenever we are doing troubleshooting. Okay, so this is the first guideline which I suggest you to check. And once you've realized the problem, let's say the problem is on my device, let's say only this user is facing the problem, so there is a connectivity issue between the 1.1 PC and the switch. There are a few important things we need to now keep in mind to check. The first thing, we are going to check the physical connectivity. Now there are many reasons for not having a proper connection, so I listed most of them in my next slide, where you'll see some more in detail about what are the possible issues can be when you have a physical connectivity issues. Or it can be configurations in the switch, misconfigurations like duplex mismatch, which can affect some collisions, late collisions, some of the FCF errors, which can affect your communication between the devices. So let us try to figure out what are the possible physical connectivity issues can be in case if there is no communication happening between any two devices in the LAN. So I listed here the first thing, simple, the no connection. So my switch and my PC, so it is not able to access. The first thing you have to make sure that the connection between the two devices in your network is correct. So if there is no cable connected, in that case also you will not have any communication happening between them. Or maybe you are trying to connect on a wrong port. If you're connecting on a wrong port, also you need to make sure that you are connecting on a proper port, and also you have to check the wrong cable. So you might be using a cross cable here, which really doesn't work here, because to connect a PC to switch we must use a straight cable. So you might be connecting a wrong cable type. In that case also you don't see the communication happening. So make sure that both the ends are properly connected, and after that we can figure out the cable issue, or the device may not have a power, or it can be a wrong cable type. So whenever you figure out these things, let's say I realize that there may be a problem with the cable. In case if you realize, then probably the alternative is you need to replace with another cable and try connecting with other cable. If it works, then in that case we can confirm that there is a problem with the cable type, or maybe the cable might be a faulty cable. Okay, make sure that the first thing, both the devices are powered on and both the ends have a proper connectivity between them, and then we can figure out the cabling part. And in case if you realize that there is a problem with the port, in that case try connecting to alternate port which is not in use, and make sure that they are on the same VLAN, and all those things you need to check. And if it works, in that case we can confirm that there is a problem with the port. Okay, so there might be problem with your physical LAN card also sometimes, which is very rare in general, but still these are some of the things we need to keep in mind when we do troubleshooting the connectivity part. So these are some of the listed here. No cable connection, or if there is a cable connection, might be a wrong cable, device having no power, it can be connecting on a wrong port, or cable might be a bad cable, sometimes it happens. So even I got some more issues here. It can be loose connections, so make sure that both the sides, the jack, the cable is seated inside your jack. Okay, sometimes unplug the cable and reinsert will fix the problem. Okay, so if you're using high-end devices, generally in the production networks you will find some patch panels. Sometimes you have a patch panels connecting to the switch, it might be faulty, so you can figure out, like try connecting to direct switch port if it works fine, and if it is not working on the patch panel, then we can also confirm that there is a problem with the patch panel also. Sometimes we use some converters in between that might affect your connectivity as well, or it can be wrong interface converters we use in general. So these are some of the things we need to keep in mind, and whenever we do some troubleshooting relating to connectivity part. So connectivity part, these are some of the possible issues which I try to put all in one place so that we can check each and everything and make sure that everything is perfect. So once you realize that your connectivity is perfect, so my connectivity is okay and there's no problem, so there might be some configurations on the switch which can also affect the communication between them, like some of the late collisions because of duplex mismatch. Let us discuss more in detail about these configurations. VLAN configurations we'll be discussing in our next video, so I'll be discussing only about these two types of issues here. The first one is physical connectivity and the next one is switch configurations. So when you do troubleshooting, now there are some few commands which are very useful commands, especially this command, show interface status command on the switches. Now when you show interface status, you can troubleshoot the connectivity issues by using these commands. Means you can easily understand what might be the problem. So whenever you see something called not connected, which means there is no physical connection between the devices, so which means F0/1 is not connected. So if your device is connected on F0/1, and if you see that this message on your switch when you issue this command, then you need to make sure that then definitely it is a connectivity issue. So now you need to figure out what is the problem over there. And whenever you see something called connected, it's nothing but it's perfect, so it's working fine. That's what you'll see. And also you'll see some VLAN information, trunk, all this information you'll find here. At the same time you'll find some duplex information which I'll be discussing more in detail as we move on with this topic. So one more message, you'll see something called disable. So when you see disable, you need to understand that your port is in shutdown state. So the solution is simple, just go to the interface, whatever the interface. Let's say I'm using F0/14 or F1/14. Just we have to issue a command called no shutdown. So when you give no shutdown, automatically now the link will come up. So three types of messages you should see here. Whichever the ports you're connecting, you should see something called connected, and the ports which are not using, you might see not connected. And then if you see disable, means the port will be in a shutdown state. So in the production network, sometimes what happens is, in general, the recommended practice is whatever the ports we are using, we make them ports in no shutdown state, and whichever the ports we are not using, unused ports, let's say in my production network I have 24 port switch. In that 24 port switch, I'm just using 1 to 15 and then 21 to 24. So 21 to 24 I'm using for switch to switch, and 1 to 15 I'm connecting to my end devices like computers, and the remaining ports I'm not using them. So what we'll do is the unused ports from 16 to 20, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, we simply give no shutdown. So we generally don't want anyone to use those ports by connecting in the LAN, because we have some cables going, so we really don't want anyone to use these ports. So when we do these things, sometimes by mistake we may shut down some of the used ports, or maybe you try to add some connections but you realize that the port is shut down state on the switch. So you need to check this one as well. So show interface status, I really recommend this command 2 for troubleshooting, which will give a very much more detailed information about the connectivity, VLAN, duplex, and also it will show you some speed as well. Apart from that, the one more command I use is swipe interface brief. A little bit less useful in switches, but very much useful in your routers. Where here also you'll see something called administratively down. So when you see administratively down, in that case we need to understand that the port is in shutdown state. So this is the message what you should see: up and up. All the interfaces must be up and up. Suppose if you see something called up and down, there is a mismatch of protocol. So we did this troubleshooting more, it's more applicable in the WAN setup on the serial interfaces. I discussed troubleshooting this swipe interface brief status in a separate video, and troubleshooting WAN connectivity. So this is also one of the very useful. So if you see down here, so in that case you have to understand there is some connectivity issue. So there might be a port in shutdown state on the remote side, down. So I should see up and up. That is the main intention here.